Hello and welcome to Gettable, AFL.com.au's home of trade, draft, free agency and contract news. We're here thanks to our good friends at Google, Riley, Beveridge and Cal Twomey with you. Cal, the wall of trades are out, the wall of picks are in. We've got 35 names and clubs that we want to speak about today because, Cal, as our cover story says, we are draft ready.
Yes, we are, Riley. 1 week to go and we cannot wait. So let's get to the cover story here. Who's draft ready? We are. It's got a bit of who do you think you are? I am about it, but we're going to get through all of these names, and as we do that, discuss what the Tigers are doing at the top of the draft, the latest bolter, and inside some of the big trade discussions. Great that we finally featured on the cover story in episode 34.
It's taken us 34 episodes, but we finally got us there. But we are draft ready, of course, as we said, because we've got a huge week ahead of us, and it all starts next Monday. So 9 a.m. till 11 a.m. on Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday, leading into the draft. We are back. Draft night countdown is back. Clubs, players, list managers, recruiters, everyone will be there as we wrap through all the picks. We've got our draft song in the works as well, Cal.
9 to 11 on Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday, so we can't wait for that. We do have the draft song, and also lots of guests coming on and lots of news throughout those three shows as well.
And then, of course, the draft as it happens on Draft Night Live. That's 7 p.m. Wednesday and Thursday nights. And then the rookie draft, the only place you can catch it is AFL.com.
And just quickly on the draft as well, the only place you can get all the analysis as it happens with all the background to every single pick, the trades that are happening, who wanted who's next to come, everything you need to know on our draft coverage on Wednesday and Thursday night.
That is where you can find it. All right, let's get to our wall of picks now, and we will start with the club that has pick number 1 and number 2. It's Matt Clark, West Coast's list and recruiting boss.
Yeah, well, the Eagles hold all the cards, don't they? So there's been no official confirmation to the players in terms of Willem Dersma and Cooper Duff-Tytler, but they are the hot favourites to be the Eagles' top 2 picks. Now, the Eagles made a trade last week to get a future 4th round pick for pick 53. Everyone was like, what's going on there? Why are they doing that? Well, that pick was going to be eaten up and swallowed by the fact that they didn't have the list spots to carry it. So they had to get that trade done before the deadline. In all the trade pick swaps window, that was the only deal that got done. So that one, they got something for a pick that was otherwise going to disappear. There's been discussions between them and Carlton, that 9 and 13, potential to move up the board there. No progress there. I'm not sure that happens, to be honest. They're likely to bid on Zeke Hewland, but are also considering a bid on Harry Dean at one of those early 2 picks. So that could be a shaper in and of itself. But yeah, I think Duffmar is the strong favourite at the moment. All
right, Mitch Marsh, let's get to our first player, the South Australian. Had a great year, under 18s All-Australian.
Yeah, he kicked a lot of goals, didn't he? Look, there's been some clubs in the teens who will consider Marsh. The Giants are in that mix. I think the locals in the Crows are in that mix as well. Doesn't look likely to be inside that very top end of the draft, that top 13 or 14, given the bids will push that back, of course, but could be also available in the 20s as we scroll through. Look at this guy, Xavier Taylor.
One of your favourites.
Yeah, he is. He's got the swagger, just even in the shot. I still think he's in that leading 4 contenders for the Tigers alongside Sullivan, Roby, Sam Cumming and also Sam Grill. I've been saying that for a couple of weeks, and I think that those are the guys that are right in the Richmond mix. I think there's a chance he gets through to Melbourne. His draft range is really small. I think it's Richmond, Essendon or Melbourne.
Yeah.
And he's going to draft night. The Bombers haven't done as much work on him as some of the other players. Doesn't mean he's not out of the mix there. Some clubs think that Essendon's more looking at the midfield option. So if he did get through Richmond, then he'd get to Melbourne.
Okay.
I don't know if that's the case or not at this point, but certainly in the mix for those 3 clubs, and looks like staying in Victoria. He's a gun. Can't wait to see him play next year.
Certainly is one of the most dominant defensive players in this year's draft crop. Mick Agresta, Carlton's recruiting manager. They've got 9 and 11, of course, but the bids is going to be the big factor for them.
And a much happier looking Mick Agresta than the photos we
used to show.
Of mighty Mick. So great to see him here on the board. Carlton has some big calls to make. So pick 9 is still on the table. There hasn't been the type of interest in that pick as the Blues would have expected, and nor that we've seen in previous years. So pick 9 and pick 11 still isn't on the table. Essendon, we can say, is a club that has its eyes on pick 9. We haven't talked about that before.
Yeah.
So they are a club that's a watch this space. Adelaide has spoken to Carlton about a trade, but it could be player dependent. And then this is the difficult part, because clubs are going to have to go in blind if they're going to have to make that trade if it's player dependent.
It can't be player dependent, can it? Because of where the bid's going to fall.
You can narrow it,
yeah.
But the same for Collingwood. I think they've got interest in that pick too, as well, and shifting up the board. But it would be about a player being on the board at that point. Are they going to know that? Probably not.
Yeah.
Now, a bid at 3 for Harry Dean would trouble the Blues. That's not an ideal result. A bid at 7, I think, is the ideal result for where this one sits. So it's in that range. Big difference, though, in terms of points for 3 and also for 7. If I'm Carlton and a bid comes at 6 or 7, I hold all my picks and I just let the second pick slide back a few spots and you end up with 2 first-round picks. I think that's the best result because there isn't a club out there going to throw a future first-round pick at it.
No, I agree with you there. What about Dyson Sharp, one of the best midfield prospects in this year's pool? He's the Lark medalist. He was the South Australian captain. He was the All-Australian captain. He's had such a great year.
Yeah, he has. I mean, he hasn't put a foot wrong. You wrote a great story on him this week as well, with Dyson Sharp showing that effort that he puts into everything in his game. Essendon looks to be his starting point. If they don't pick him, he could get through a few other spots. But I do think the clubs will come at that point to try and get into the board, including Collingwood. If he's there a little bit later, I think Collingwood is a watch to see if they can get up and get Dyson Sharp. He makes them better next year. The Crows, of course, if he starts to push on deeper into that first round, it would obviously be a local look at him. The Bombers have done their work on him. They do need to grab a midfielder, I think, with at least one of their 2 first picks.
Yeah, Josh Lindsay, the Geelong Falcons prospect, is a gettable guest of the past this year. Cal, where's his range?
Not a part of the initial 12 invitees to the draft, so his draft range is looking at that 10 to 20 part of the draft, I think, pre-bids. Hawthorn, Bulldogs, Geelong deeper into the first round. I think he's going to be all in the mix of clubs looking at Lindsay as that halfback kicker. Ollie Greaves is a different story in that he's a really hard one for me to place. Now, there's been clubs doing their work on him in the back sort of 20 of the draft as well, of the whole draft, knowing there's a crunch of clubs in there that probably aren't chasing that bigger body midfielder, or they already have one. So he's a bit of a mystery in terms of where he gets picked in the end. Still think there's clubs enough looking at him in that sort of part. Essendon, Geelong, GWS, if they do open up a second spot or second pick. His performances as a junior, I think he's one of those players that the more he's played, the more opportunities he's had for clubs to pick the holes.
Yeah.
But obviously they want to see that running come through. And he's set to do a 2-kilometre time trial later this week as well, having missed one at the Combine when he was ill. So, look, he's still got some real qualities. We saw that in the preliminary final when he had 35 and 4. That doesn't happen often in a junior game. So that's, I think, his range. It's a little bit further back than probably was the case earlier in the year.
Cal Burns, Gold Coast's list boss. They've got 15 and 18 inside the first round, but the bids is going to be the big factor for them with Zeke Ewell, Dill Patterson, Kobe Coulson, Jai Murray and Bo Adensall.
Absolutely. I'm not sure they get all of those guys with the bids coming for Zeke likely at pick 2. I think, and then the Rocket Patterson 3 or 4, 5. So that's where it gets a challenge. And then if the next bid comes a little bit earlier for Jai Murray, who is shaping to be the third son to attract a bid, having missed a lot of footy this year. If that happens, where does that squeeze put on the points for Bo Adensall? Kobe Coulson, I still think gets to the Suns because I think that's a later pick than probably the other 2. But that's where it sits for them. They have, again, been points hunting. So they've got pick 15 on the table. Essendon is a potential suitor there, but that's also what the Bombers are looking to do, whether they want to compress their picks in the 20s. At this point, number 9, as we just spoke about, is been targeted to some degree, but they haven't been that interested in moving up the board at this point. So no deal agreed yet on those picks. Adrian Caruso at the Giants, lots of names thrown around for their pick.
Yes.
Their first pick,
definitely.
as there always is. Is it Oscar Taylor? Is that too obvious? He's a very Giantsy player. Latrell Pickett, they're going to miss Darcy Jones next year. So do they need another small forward? Latrell Pickett, he's on the board somewhere.
He's around here.
Yeah, he's going to turn 20 later this season, so later this year, so he's ready to go. If Cam Nairn was still available, would they look at him? Archie Ludowick or Mitch Marsh? I think Jacob Farrow would be the number 1 target, but I don't think he's going to get there.
What about the Sizzler?
Yeah.
Sam Grill, one of our favourites, one of our first guests on Gettable this year. Is he in Richmond's mix at 3 and 4?
Yeah, I think he is, and I think he's been that way for some time. We've spoken about that over the past month or so, that if the Tigers are going to look for that need for speed, he's the guy, and he's got that great blend. Like who is the athlete in this year's draft that has a breakneck speed of 2.92 seconds over 20, and also breaks 6 minutes over the 2 kilometre time trial. So played VFL at the Tigers as well, so they got a good look at him there. So if he doesn't go there though, I think he's a chance to get through the Giants. So,
I was going to say.
So that's a watch as well, and they're going to be doing more work on him too.
Pretty big variance in where he could go. Jacob Farah, one of the best West Australian prospects in this year's draft class. He has some fans inside the top 10, doesn't he?
His draft range is pretty short, somewhere between 5 and 10 or 11, I think. Essendon's looked at him as that bigger-bodied midfielder / half-back. He can use the footy, and they need some of those. He's right in that Melbourne mix if he got there. Hawthorn is waiting to see as well. I think if he got through to 10, he's a very Hawthorn type of player too, I think, in the way that they pick and target their players. And as I said, the Giants at 12, I think, would snap him up if he got there. So I can't see him getting to the Eagles selection if they're keen on him at 13.
Harry Dean, we know he's headed to Carlton. The question is, where is the bid placed?
Well, yeah, it's all about that bid and where it's coming. So West Coast is considering it. I think that'd be their second pick and the second option. I think Zeke. I think Zeke would be the first one, and then maybe Harry Dean after that. If not them, then I think the Tigers will pull the trigger. I mean, the reality is the Tigers kind of have to do it at some point if they're picking, because Carlton's pick is not that far beyond their pick. So from a competitive point of view, in terms of how the draft all shakes out, you want to be wiping out some picks at some point if it gets through. So, as I said before, there's a big difference between 3 and 7, so that'll shape what the Blues do on the night.
Blake Threadgold, another key defender who has impressed many this year. He's coming with a bit of a rush, isn't he?
Yeah, so Harry Dean's going to be the first key defender drafted and probably the earliest key defender drafted in nearly 5 years. There's a reason why Blake Threadgold's coming up not too far behind that as well, because he's a very, very competitive, tall defender. He stops players as well as intercepts the ball. He might be the next key defender drafted in the pool. So North Melbourne has interest in the 20s. I don't expect him to get there. And I don't expect North Melbourne to be moving up the board either. So they've been talking about bundling up. I don't think they're going to. Hawthorn is in the mix for him. Fremantle at 20, Adelaide at 16. Could they pull the trigger as well? So there's plenty of interest in Blake Threadgold, and that's because he finished the year so well.
Jace Taylor, Melbourne's recruiting boss, one of the best in the business. They've got 7 and 8. What are their plans?
Well, they're a little bit of wait and see, aren't they? We've spoken about some of the names in all the way through, like Cumming and also Roby, Xavier Taylor. Do any of these guys get through that Richmond and Bomber batch of picks to see if they can land at the D's? So they're all the same names. I think all these clubs are looking at a similar group of names. They've been linked to a few in this bracket as well. Cam Nairn's another name that they've been linked to. And a number of clubs actually have him in that sort of 12 to 15 range. So if they didn't take him, I don't think he'd last too much longer on the board.
All right, Zeke Ulan, we know he's headed to Gold Coast. It seems like he's going to be pick 2 behind Willem Dersma from the Eagles.
Yes, Zeke the Freak.
Zeke the Freak.
In a week. Might squeak when there's a peak from a shriek from an early bid. I don't know.
Oh, that's good. He's going to Gold Coast.
He's off to the Gold Coast. And number 2 looks the likely outcome for him. Yeah, I mean, he's a gun. I think we've kind of underestimated him to some degree this year because he hasn't played too much footy, but don't underestimate him. He's a high-quality player and he'd be a rising star favourite next year. The
Dogs, they've got pick 14. That's Mick Regan, their list boss. There'd been some murmurs around whether or not they'd move forward. It doesn't look likely, though. It looks like they're going to hold.
I don't think they move forward, but I think if there's options there, they could move back.
Yep.
If it's looking like a good pool of players are available there, and that would provide options as well around what that top group of their priorities would be. Josh Lindsay, I think, is a possibility. Lockie Doverston's been linked. Academy bids have been linked as well. So they're a little bit wait and see it at 14.
Do they get Will Darcy?
Yeah, they get Will Darcy. So Will Darcy, I don't expect to see a bid come on Will Darcy. So I think there's a good chance they get him as a rookie.
All right, Blair Hartley, Richmond's list boss. We know about their calls at 3 and 4. Which direction do they go, though? Do they go a mix? Do they complement each pick? Do they go 2 mids? Do they try and get a Zave Taylor in?
This is the big question, isn't it? I mean, if we think that the first couple is looking like the first couple, then the Tigers might really hold the key to the next 6 or 7 selections. So, and once again, hold the keys to the draft. What they do will shape what a number of other clubs do in this Noah's Ark draft, 2 by 2 by 2, hurrah, hurrah. So there's the big 4 that we expect to be in their sights, and we've spoken about them over the past couple of weeks. And my question is, what are the priorities, and how do they shape up what they did last year with what they did this year, what they want to do this year? So if they're doing the work on Roby and Cumming, they've done the work on Taylor and Grill as well, the Vic Metro boys versus Sully Roby, who's just come on to the second half of the season, then Sam Cumming, the South Australian. Still likely to use 3 picks. From a Tigers point of view, I don't know if there is certainty to take Louis Kelleray using father-son pick that 38 if he's still there. So I'm not sure about that. But they've got some big decisions to make. What does the injury to Josh Smiley do? Does that shape anything at all? I don't know. Maybe that's something that outside forces we think about more than inside, but given he's only a year into his career, but they've got some big calls to make.
Aiden Schubert, probably going to be the first key forward taken off the draft board, but where does he actually go? Who are the key forward needy teams?
Bombers have looked at him. I think if he doesn't go there, though, he could slip through a little bit further, even maybe to their 3rd pick. So he's got a wide range. He's not being invited to the first night of the draft. So there's a few clubs in the teams who don't need the key forwards, such as the Dogs. All
right, we are at the halfway point of this wall of picks, Cal, which is where we're going to find our searchable question for today. There it is, searchable. We are 1 week from the AFL Draft, Cal, and in celebration of all things draft, according to Google's trending search data, we want to know today, which do you think is more searched for in Australia this year? The NBA draft or the NFL draft?
Well, this would all be me because I'm a big US sports fan. So I'm going to go with NFL draft.
You would be wrong.
I'd be wrong.
The NBA draft.
Well, that's a first.
There's more basketball fans in Australia than NFL fans, as it turns out. All right, let's move on. Willem Dersma, the number 1 pick in waiting, Cal. He's off to West Coast, isn't he?
Would be staggering if it went a different way now. So, Harley Reid looks like he's got
a
new partner. Oh, no. In the number 1. Jeez, there's slow on the audio. But number 1 pick for the second time in 3 years, and he's gone.
All right, Mark McKenzie, Hawthorn's list boss. They've got 10 and 22.
Yeah.
Do they need midfield depth?
The Hawks are in the sitting, waiting, wishing part of the draft, aren't they? Does any top target get through? I think it's still live, this pick, in terms of a trade, maybe a pushback. If there's options there, could a club nab it off them? And if someone's there and they see there's 3 or 4 options, could they push back 3, 4, 5 spots? Farrow's been linked, as we've spoken about. Josh Lindsay's been linked as well. I feel like those guys as kickers are very much the Hawthorn types.
Oscar Taylor, the speediest player in this year's draft class, Cal. He won the 20-metre sprint at the Combine, finished 2nd in the agility test. He's got a lot of fans in that 10 to 15 region, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. The Dogs, I think, would be one of them in the mix. I think the Crows would be in the mix. I think the Giants would be in the mix. I think all those clubs, basically, in the sort of 12 onwards phase of the draft are looking at Oscar Taylor. I think if you got to the Cats pick as well, they'd snap him up. So I think he's a teens player.
All right, Latrell Pickett, he's come on in the second half of the year. Clubs love what he's been able to do at Glenelg. Where's his starting point, though?
Well, the Giants have done their work on him as well. Melbourne's been linked to him too. I can't see him as much in that top group, but there's the obvious link, isn't there?
Yeah.
And he would be playing straight away. GWS has put a lot of time into him, so he's a fit and a possibility there. Other clubs are waiting to see if he can get through a little bit deeper into the teens or the 20s. So Fremantle, does Essendon take a punt on him as well with one of their picks if they go that way and hold those selections? North Melbourne, Richmond, if he even got through into the 30s, which I'm not saying he's out of the realms. So we know the value of small forwards and speed in the AFL landscape. He's got that.
Steve Cannell, Brisbane's recruiting boss. He built a premiership list at the Lions, but he's going to have his work cut out with trying to get some more points in, obviously, with the bid for Dan Annable.
Yeah, and pick 17 and 23 have been on the table. Not too much movement on those selections yet.
Yeah.
So, again, if the Gold Coast pick that we just spoke about, pick 15, hasn't got too many takers at the moment, then 17's worth less.
Yeah.
So, that's a challenge this time around. And we're seeing the new system start to crunch in a little bit.
Yeah, we are.
And make it a little bit harder for clubs to move around their selection. So, bit by bit, and then next year will be even more so. I think, the bid comes to Dan Annable, you'd expect by Richmond. I'd be surprised if that didn't happen at that point. So likely to have 3 or 4 picks. There's some academy players later on that they'll have a look at as well. Very quickly, this isn't really related to Brisbane as well. Something I have noticed speaking to clubs around this year's draft is that they're doing their work on what the new rules means for the draft crop. Yeah. So there's not only the ruck scenario where the jumping ruck is kind of back and going to be valuable, and the lack of the sub means you can probably carry in a young ruckman as well to have another role in that 5 on the bench. The other part is the last touch, I think, is going to help the players who can run without the stop. and that type of thing.
Speed it up.
Yeah, and speed it up, and who can get to that contest to contest. So definitely the new rules are making an impact on how clubs are thinking.
Sam Cumming, one of the best midfield prospects in this year's draft.
Gun.
He's the South Australian. Do you think he's sort of in that Richmond, Essendon, Melbourne mix?
I do, yeah. I can't see how he gets out of those sort of top 6 selections. Richmond, Bombers, Demons, all in that pack. So midfielder forward with some toughness to him, a real sort of hard edge to how his game. He's got a lot of admirers.
He certainly does, as does this man, Lockie Doverston, one of the best small forwards in the draft crop. His range has sort of varied a little bit, but he seems like he might go in the teens now, doesn't he?
Yeah, the next little whiz, isn't he? Kicked more than 50 goals this year at all levels across his game. He can tackle and harass as well. So let's see where Carlton's second pick ends up. I think that's a possibility if they do what I think they could do in terms of just hold and absorb. That might tell the story about his draft range.
I like it. Dan Annable, we know he's headed to the Lions. The
Yep.
bid comes from the Tigers, you reckon?
Yeah, I think if I was banking on it at the moment, I'd be doing that and putting that in the Phantom draft. But I don't see it being the Eagles. Could be the Bombers. I think you got to the Bombers, they'd have to make a bid, given their midfield desperation as well in that part of the draft. So, yeah, the Animal Lecter, another player who we've probably gone under the radar just how good he's been. Averaged 22 disposals at VFL level. Could have been playing at senior level, I think, for the Lions in the back half of their season if he was eligible.
Sully Roby. Have you seen a draft story like his? Like, I know we've spoken about it a lot, but what he's been able to achieve, particularly in the back half of the season, has been
Sully.
incredible.
Yeah, Sully when the wine runs out. Like that role model song?
Yeah, no, it's
Good.
Yeah.
Sully.
All right.
The Roby Rise has gone. Are we on the clock, are we? We're in a rush. The Roby Rise has gone on and on and on and on. And the question now is, where does it stop? So Richmond, obviously, it would be remarkable if he gets to 3 or 4.
Yeah.
That's just a crazy, crazy story. But a lot of clubs are doing their work on him again in recent times and this week. So been in strong consideration there. Essendon were quick to interview him mid-year, as were the D's. Look who's lined up with the picks. So I think he's right in that group. And he's attending draft night. Yeah, a remarkable story.
Chris Keane, one of the busiest list managers during the trade period at Sydney. But in terms of the draft, it's all about their academy prospects and where the bids fall. Max King, Harry Kyle, Lockie Carmichael and Noah Chamberlain. Really.
And going to be busy in the draft. So the challenge for them is how do they navigate these if they all fall in a similar, well, at least 3 of them fall in a similar spot. So picks 31, 32, 42, 63. I think they'd also like to hit the draft to see what they can get from an open draft point of view. Bids from Carmichael and Kyle could come within that top 20. Then there's Max King, who is probably more of a float. I've struggled to find who calls the name for King. I think that probably happens 20 to 35 range at this point. Chamberlain, I think, fits in as a rookie option for them, given the lack of picks sort of in the draft this year.
If you had to guess right now, which bid gets placed first on the Swans Academy guys?
I'd be guessing. I think it's one of, I mean, Kyle has a fair bit. Carmichael, I'd probably lean towards at the moment.
Okay. Hamish Ogilvy at the Adelaide Crows. They've got 16. They've been trying to work their way up a little bit. What do you see them doing on draft night?
They have, but I don't think they're going to be using a future one to do it, and that's not the market this year. So there's still a lot of good players who are going to be in the range at 16. If they go tall, is Mitch Marsh going to be there?
Yep.
Is there a chance of a slider that gets through? So a few being considered in that range, but I think they only move up if the deal is right.
All right. Well, one man that can run all day is Cam Nan. He's got a lot of admirers now, Cal. He's starting to push his way up the draft board, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. And look, he's probably going to end up picked in somewhere between that sort of 10 to 15 range of the draft.
Yeah.
It's not that much different to where he's been sort of rated through the year. So, but as you say, he can run, and he's entered the season in terms of his midfield work up the ground, makes clubs look at him as a goal-kicking wingman / midfield option. So, yeah, I think by the time Melbourne has the picks, if it goes that way, then 11, 12, it's not that far off sort of where he's been viewed. So, and also, there's probably been a little bit of the player that hasn't been spoken about as much by clubs because there's a chance he did get through.
Yeah.
And I think the interest in him post-draft will show out to be that it's a lot of clubs had him inside that first 15 or 16.
Trying to hide him away, Cal. Harley Barker, his South Australian teammate.
Yep.
Had a great year, obviously finished with the injury, which was very unfortunate, but still has a lot of fans inside that top 20 range.
Yeah, I think Hawthorn, Adelaide, North Melbourne, Fremantle, all in consideration for Harley Barker. Yeah, he's got some exciting traits to his game, as does Adam Swade. So he's tough to get a read on as the Bombers sort sort of prepare for a potential bid for him and what their stance on it is too, because
Yeah.
they've got the 5 picks too. They haven't really shown that much interest at the moment in terms of getting picks out the back to match these guys. So where they are at the moment, there's a chance they actually do get all their picks in without having to match a bid, but then their list spots are full.
Yeah.
So it's not easy to see how they fit in Suede, also Hussein Al-Ashkar. So the Suede bid at the earliest, I think, would be a big 20 odd or so, and then maybe a little bit deeper after that. So a couple of West Australian clubs have looked at him, but I'm not sure where that lines up in terms of the Essendon interest. I don't think it's a certainty that they take those guys.
Okay. Well, there is Matt Rosa, Essendon's list boss. What do they do? Because they've got 5 picks inside 30. They've got 2 inside the top 6 as things stand. What are their plans?
I mean, I wish I knew for sure. Makes the fandom draft a little bit easier. And they're a little bit dictated to by what Richmond does, aren't they, at the very top end. So I think they're looking at a similar group of players. I feel like Dyson Sharp and Jacob Farrow are probably more in their mix than they are in the Tigers mix. But you probably have to deal with your own 4 and then a couple of players that the Tigers are going to grab in terms of your 6 options. So I think that's probably the group. Maybe not Sam Krill as much either. But they're also, as I said, looking at that 9, can you move up with their picks in the 20s or even a future 2? And 15s, there's been ongoing sort of level of discussions there. They haven't made an offer for one of the top 2 picks from the Eagles. So the ability to get up is all but gone, I think.
Yep.
So, yeah, if I'm making the group for the Bombers, Roby, Cummings, Sharp, Farrow, Taylor.
Yeah. Like
And look, it's a big draft for them. They have to get it right.
They certainly do. Cooper Duff-Tytler was, as he told us, was mere months away from being an Essendon NGA prospect. But he's available on the open market. Do you still see it being Duffma at the Eagles?
Yeah, I do. I'd be surprised if it went the other way. But look, shocks happen. Still got a bit more time to work on that. But I think if it doesn't go for him at the Eagles or a trade happens or something throws that out, then I think Richmond would pounce on him. Again, you look at what they brought in last year.
Yep.
They brought in some tools last year. They didn't bring in Ruckman though, and Toby Nankervis is getting towards the back end of his career. And then there's Dill Patterson, the Rocket, a final man on the board.
One of my faves.
Yeah, I mean, he's a gun, very exciting, probably the most exciting player in the draft, and that's why we expect a bid to come on him in the first 3 or 4 selections.
All right, it was a massive wall of picks. Don't forget, from next Monday, a lot of the people and players and recruiters on this board will be on our draft night countdown shows. They are from 9 a.m. till 11 a.m. Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday leading into the draft. Then you can catch all of the picks, all of the reaction, all of the anticipation for what happens next. It's become a massive part of the draft. That's Draft Night Live. It's not so much what's just happened, but what's about to happen, who's trying to get into the next picks, what they're thinking, who might be trying to out-navigate every other club. That's from 7 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday and Thursday night. That's part of the national drafts. And then on Friday, the only place you can catch the rookie draft is live on afl.com.au, Kel.
And the only place you can catch the Phantom Draft is on Monday night.
Monday night.
What day are we at? We're at Wednesday. So Monday night on afl.com.au, the Phantom Draft Top 30 will be in there with all the club-by-club whispers. And then Tuesday night was all late mail version of that as well. So can't wait to get that done for another year.
Can't wait to see it either. All right, plenty more still to come on afl.com.au. Across the next week, we'll see you there.